From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Here's a story that feels like a cool breeze on a hot summer day like today. In 1895, Leadville city leaders faced a dilemma. The silver mining industry had made the town quite wealthy, but then the market crashed, and the city's fortunes cratered right along with it. Residents were leaving in droves to seek better opportunities. So city leaders came up with an unusual idea to draw tourists to Leadville, entice people to live there, and give the remaining residents a sense of pride. They decided to build a giant palace of ice. And what followed is a remarkable story of innovative engineering that drew visitors from thousands of miles away. Author Afton Rorvik paints a vivid picture of all of this in her new book, The 1896 Leadville Ice Palace. Afton lives in Windsor and spoke with me about why she finds this history so fascinating.
Leadville has captured my heart since I was a teenager. I grew up in Fort Collins. My mother took me and my brothers there. I think I was 13 when we first went. It's still a wonderful place. There's still buildings there that were built in the late 1800s. There's some wonderful museums there. But it's really the history that pulls me in because this was where mining happened. Very creative thinkers. Leadville has had that mentality since the late 1800s that anything can happen in Leadville. It's just a fascinating place then and now.
And it was a very successful, thriving place for almost 2 decades until Congress passed something called the Sherman Silver Purchase Act in 1893. Can you briefly explain how that affected the city?
That act said that the government had to buy a certain amount of silver at a certain price every month. That was great for mining in Leadville. But then all of a sudden, when Congress repealed that act, the price of silver went way down. Some people called it the silver panic. And so even though there was still silver in the mines, it just cost too much to get it out. So a lot of the mines shut and a lot of people left Leadville.
So leaders came up with this kind of crazy idea to build the biggest, most magnificent ice palace in the world. A handful of other cities had built these as tourist attractions, but what made Leadville officials want to try this, and what did they hope it would accomplish?
Yes, you do wonder, why does the city build an ice palace? Back then, it was something they did. It was basically a marketing campaign. They wanted people to come back to Leadville, the people who had left. They wanted other people to come and see how wonderful Leadville was and maybe decide to live there. They also wanted to bring some jobs to Leadville since the mines had shut. So it was a pretty magnificent building campaign, a marketing campaign.
And a major project, too.
Yes.
You write that engineers laid the first block of ice on November 25th, 1895. When it was finished a little over a month later, the ice palace was 450 feet long, 320 feet wide. The walls were 14 feet high in places. Tell me what fascinates you about how the ice palace was constructed.
It really was remarkable. When you think about the tools and the equipment they had then, they did not have hydraulic lifts. They didn't have anything that we have. They lifted these huge blocks of ice that weighed 100 pounds or more,
Wow.
stacked them on top of each other. It was just fascinating.
And they used a kind of I won't call it technology. It really has to do with boiling water.
Yes. When I came across that in an article, I was quite surprised. They used boiling water to stick these blocks of ice together, and it worked.
Wow.
It froze them together. I find that remarkable that they figured this out.
How helpful was it that most of the people working on building the ice palace were miners?
I don't know. The miners love to use dynamite, so they did help blow up the trees on the hill to create the ice palace. But they had to learn. They had to learn how to work with this slippery material, and it was a challenge. Yeah.
Okay, a mixed bag, it sounds like.
Yes.
The Ice Palace officially opened to the public in January of 1896. What was opening day like?
Opening day started with a parade. The entire city came out for this parade. Everyone dressed in their costumes. The snowshoe team had costumes from white blankets and matching socks and hats and
Hmm.
bands and all kinds of people in this parade. And then the whole city joined in and they walked up to Ice Palace Hill and into the Ice Palace. It was quite a day.
And it was really built to be a winter entertainment center of sorts. I'm wondering, what kind of festivities did visitors to the Ice Palace enjoy?
Yes, the city declared it the Crystal Carnival. So it was 3 months of all sorts of events. It was costume contests, skating contests, all sorts of things. One day, the German people came and had German food and did all sorts of costumes. One day, the miners came. One day, the school children came. It was just one party after another, lots of band concerts. The idea was, let's just celebrate and let's show the world that this is a marvelous place to come and spend winter.
The Ice Palace was intended to revive Leadville's prosperity and appeal. Did it accomplish that?
I think it did for 3 months. There are documents that show that people came from all over the world. Lots of people from Europe, people all over Colorado. A lot of people talked about it. People are still talking about it. But sadly, ice melts.
Yes.
So it didn't last. The memory of it still, of course, lives on.
I love the thought of people coming from Europe to go see this. And, it wasn't easy to get to Leadville. I mean, it's not easy today, even.
Yeah, they had to take a boat. They had to take trains. Even people coming up from Denver had to take a narrow gauge railroad, and they might have to get off the train and help the engineers shovel the snow off the tracks. So it was not an easy place to get to. They had to really want to go there, and a lot of people did. Eventually, everything just disappeared. It melted. The wooden frame came down. There was never another ice palace in Leadville.
I want to talk more about that wood frame because we have to talk about the sad ending of the Ice Palace.
Yes.
Of course, it melted by March. That was to be expected. But around that time, the miners in town also went on strike. What happened?
Yes, the miners realized they needed to make more money, and they started striking against the mine managers. Things got so bad in Leadville, they were shooting each other in the streets, that the National Guard came in. So people forgot about the Ice Palace. They were worried about this strike. And then eventually the miners took some of that wood from the Ice Palace frame and built barracks for themselves to live in. So it just disappeared.
Afton, what do you think the story of the 1896 Leadville Ice Palace can teach us today?
I love the creativity involved in it, the engineering feats that they did. Leadville just chose to dream big and live big, and they figured things out. They figured out how to do an ice palace. I just love that ingenuity.
Author Afton Rorvik's new book tells the story of the 1896 Leadville Ice Palace. We'll have links in our show notes where you can learn more, and you can see photos of the 1896 Ice Palace at our website, KUNC.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening.